Okay. Welcome to a whole new season, and I'm so glad that you are able to stick with us for My History Podcast. This is the first ever video podcast by yours truly, your host, Alexander Woods. And I'm joined here by Mr. Jordan West. He's a very famous person from where I come. No, he's cool, he's chill. But yeah, you're probably wondering, all right, so what's going on? What's new? Obviously, this is a video production. For your audio listeners, I do have a YouTube page now, and you'll be able to go there. Look for My History in the YouTube. Links in the description. So, if you're new, thank you for popping in. If you were referred to this, thank your peoples who referred you on to this, because it's about to be a very lit, awesome time we're going to have here. Basically, some Michigander from some part of Michigan will come through and talk to you, me, myself, about whatever that they have on their mind. A story that they've had in the past, some event or experience that was unique to them that they want to share with listeners like ourselves, watchers like you. So, like I said, we have Jordan here. Jordan, why don't you tell the people about yourself?
Thanks, Alex. Thrilled to be here. This is an awesome experience. I really appreciate it. So just a little bit about me. My name's Jordan. I'm 26. I met Alex in high school. We were in a group called Teens for Christ. And we actually got pretty close to that. We both were like in a track in high school. So we kind of bonded right away. And we were also there was probably like 5 black kids in the group.
Honestly, there was probably 3. And the fourth maybe was a guest from like an exchange program.
So we also bonded pretty quickly right away over that. And then after high school, I ended up going to college. And when I ended up finishing college, I moved to Lansing for a job and tried to link back up with Alex. Actually, before the quarantine and everything hit, we had like a little weekly sushi thing and AI Fusion or iFusion or whatever on
something Fusion,
whatever it is.
Good sushi. Shout out to AI Fusion.
Yeah, absolutely, shout out.
Discount codes.
So yeah, just tried to like rekindle like a friendship with Alex, and then we met up not too long ago, and he asked me to come on, and I said, I'd be thrilled to, and just come and kind of tell a little bit of my story. So here we are.
Exactly. And the story today for you folks is Jordan's going to tell us about himself, and let's get right into it. So Jordan, let's start at the beginning. When you first seen the doctor after you got burnt now.
So I was born at Hurley in Flint in 1994. So I grew up on like the north side of Flint, kind of up until about the age of like 5. I wouldn't say like my entire childhood was not there. When we were about 5, or when I was around about 5 or 6, I had an older brother and a younger sister, and the neighborhood we were in was getting to be kind of rough. The north side of Flint's not like the nicest place around. So my stepdad, he grew up in like kind of a rough area. So he went through a lot of really tough stuff growing up, a lot of like friends getting involved in some bad stuff, or like, like being around just like a lot of violence. So it was really important for him to get us like away from that, because he didn't want us to grow up like he did, grow up with, whatever hardships he had to go through.
Right. So,
when I was young, we moved to a little town called Columbiaville. So for anyone who doesn't know where that is, which is probably everyone that just heard me say Columbiaville, it's a little rural town right outside of Lapeer, Michigan. So an hour 15, an hour 20 northeast of Michigan.
Where
from Lansing you take I-75 or I-69 east, and then you keep going past Flint and Davison, and then the next place after Davison. It's base of the thumb, pretty much.
Okay.
So like super rural town. Not really a lot goes on. It was actually like super boring growing up there, actually. But when we moved out there, it was like a lot different. So we went from being in like a super neighborhood, like suburban neighborhood area where there's like houses right next to each other. Everyone's like right there. To growing up on like a dirt road where we had a bunch of land compared to what we did in the city. 4 acres isn't like a ton, but
No, that's a lot of land.
I mean, yeah, for people that like grew up in the city, that seems like a lot. And for me, I grew up and I had friends that had like 10 acres and stuff, and I'm like, man, that seems like a lot to me. But
right.
So we grew up, and then it was also the plot of land that we had. My great grandma owned like 80 acres on this road.
Wow.
And so she just literally gave like plots of land to all her family. So it was
that's the way to do it.
My family, so like me, my sister, my brother, my mom, and my dad. Then my grandparents, and then I had a set of cousins that lived next to them, and then my great grandma lived next to them, and then I had another set of cousins, and then another set of cousins.
The family reunions were lit,
like all the time, and it was cool because like first off, I was homeschooled growing up until about 3rd grade, so I didn't have any like public school friends. So living that close to a lot of like family, a lot of cousins. I had one cousin that I like really was close to growing up. That he lives a half mile away, so I just like hop on my bike and ride down the road, and I'd be there, and we'd hang out and do all sorts of like country stuff, I guess, which like a lot of my, once I moved to I guess more city areas, a lot of my friends were like, that's what you did? And I was like, yeah, dude, there was nothing else to do. Like we literally went fishing, and we, you know, like rode bikes everywhere, and like we used to like feed horses and stuff, just like, I mean,
that's actually pretty kind of
like
cool,
super country stuff that like most of my friends now in the city like haven't really done.
Nah, I think the first time I actually rode a horse was like a couple years ago, and I was just like in a circle. So
hey, it's weird. It's a weird experience. So growing up until that point was actually kind of nice. I mean, obviously, there's not really much to worry about when you're 8 years old. Like you're just kind of living life and having fun. So I started public school in 3rd grade because I was like, I want friends. Really, I've always been like a social person. And so I was like, I really just want friends. I had played community soccer up until that point, and I had met a few people in the soccer league that had gone to school in the public school area, like near me, that were children of like people that my mom went to school with. Because also background, this place that we moved back to was next door to the house that my mom grew up in. So same school system, like she grew up in the house next to where we lived for me growing up all the way until I moved out. So I wanted to go to public school. I met like some people playing soccer, and I had a lot of fun, and I was like, I want to have friends and stuff. So my mom made the decision to put me into public school. So when I got into public school, it was kind of like right away, I think I had like really good scores in like math and reading and stuff like that. And I think part of that was because of like being homeschooled. It was all based off of me. Like, one of the things that I kind of, I guess, complained about my schooling system that I went through was a really small, rural, like not very well funded schooling system. So for like me, I was doing really well in like math, and they put me in like advanced math classes, and my science course were really good and stuff like that. But there weren't really a whole lot of avenues for me to like advance. Like I couldn't take like AP classes really. There was like 1 or 2 options when I was in high school, but realistically at this point it was just like, you know, I was talking about the other day, like those math tests, like the minute math tests or whatever, where you have 100 questions or whatever. And, you know, that was like the start of my competitive drive, I would say. Like, I used to be super competitive about the tests because I was always one of the first ones done. And I, like, always had, like, a pretty good percentage of the questions right and stuff like that. Yeah. So, school was always really easy for me early on, but going through school in 3rd grade, something about it, like I just didn't really like it. I can't really remember what it was now. I remember my teacher like worrying that I was getting bullied or something like that, and I was like, no, I just don't really like it. It kind of sucks.
Too easy.
Yeah, I was like, this is just boring. So I went back to homeschooling in 4th grade. And then realized again that like, oh, school is just kind of boring for me everywhere. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm at home, because then if I'm at home, I'm by myself, and that's really boring. At least if I'm at school, I'm bored with my friends, you know. So flip-flopped again. 5th grade, went back to public school, and that's like I stayed in public school all the way up until I graduated and went to college and stuff. And that's actually kind of where most of the like stuff I complain about began, is like right after that. So I've had a few people recently like either come up to me in person or like message me online and be like, yeah, you kind of like talk a lot of trash about like where you came from. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm like honest. Like, I'm not going to hold back. Like I have a lot of problems where I grew up with, and like my mom always gets a certain type of way. Like I'm not trying to. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening. So my mom always gets a certain type of way when I talk about it because that's like where she grew up, and she had a lot of good experiences there. And I'm like, it's great that you did. I don't share those experiences. Like our experiences were considerably different.
Right.
And mostly because of my race. I would say like 95% because of my race. Like a lot of the stuff that I went through that I have like a lot of resentment towards that place is because of like I looked different or I whatever. So so my mom is like she always talks about like, well, I mean, we just tried our best when we moved you out there because it was like the best option. And so like I always try to tell her, I feel like she never believes me, but I'm always like, listen, I don't hold you accountable for like the stuff that I went through when I did. Like I've said this a million times. I feel like parenting is almost always like a lose-lose situation. Like no matter what you do, you're always going to feel like you should have or could have done more. Yeah, like my mom especially. Bias. I'm not saying for all parents, but specifically for my mom. It seems like she's very like, I feel like I should have done more, could have done more. And like, you did your best. Your kids aren't like, your kids are good. Right. You have good kids, so obviously you did a good job. Right?
He's not robbing me. He's not threatening me. You know, so...
It's still early on, so
you did a good job.
You said, "Hey, listen, it's still early. Like, I'm not trying to say nothing yet, but
help."
So going into middle school, like 6th grade, it was cool because like I got to play more like organized sports. So sports has always been something that's really important to me. Like some of the friends that I've met and like I'm still friends with today, like some of my best friends. I met through playing sports. So, like, all of my friends from college that I still kind of talk to, I was on a track team in college, and I met, like, some really good guys that still, like, really, really close friends with to this day, talk to regularly, like, every single day. And most of the people from high school that I still talk to, which is very few, I played sports with, or they were other athletes that I just kind of, like, vibed with them.
What was, not to interrupt you, but... Were you always picked first? Because, like, you're a tall person. People at home watching.
Yeah, you can't really
Again,
tell
you can watch it on YouTube, dropping the links in the description. But Jordan here is a extremely tall individual. I am about 5'10", 5'11". He's about a Subway or 3 sandwiches above me. So
yeah, so I'm 6'8". I
wasn't tall as ever.
I wasn't always way taller than everybody, actually. Yeah. So when I started my freshman year of high school, I was 6 foot tall. So like I was tall.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like way taller than everybody. Like there were a couple dudes in my grade that were like about the same height. And like I wasn't towering over anybody yet. But when I started my sophomore year of high school, I was 6'4". So like I grew quite a bit in high school. So when I graduated high school, 6'6", and then I've grown a couple inches since graduating high school. But,
But were you picked first for different sports?
A lot of times, yeah.
Must be nice.
Yeah. The school that I went to, not known for sports at all. Actually known as like notoriously as like a punching bag. Except for like wrestling. Like, the wrestling team was really good. So, like, I had a couple friends on the wrestling team. Like, go you guys. All the teams I was on were just terrible. Just awful. awful. And so, I mean, even though we were just terrible, like, our 7th grade year of basketball did not win a single game. 0 wins. And honestly, I'm not even about to front. A lot of that was my fault. Like, I wasn't very good. I grew pretty quick. And I was like Bambi, like I was uncoordinated. It was a rough time. But a lot of that was like also where some of like the tougher stuff kind of came into play. Like middle school, I've always said was like the worst time ever. Like if you don't peak as like a terrible person in middle school, like you're bound to do some awful things in life. Like like everyone I knew in middle school was like the worst person ever. Like intentionally trying to hurt your feelings. Like they'll pick on you about anything. They used to just call this kid used to call me what he called me Rubber Band Man, and I don't know why it bothered me so much. I don't know why, but he used to drive me crazy, and he'd be like, "What's up, Rubber Band Man?" And I'd be like, "Stop calling me that, bro." And he would just do it all the time. I don't know why it bothered me so much.
Because you like you
probably because I was I have no idea. This dude was weird. He used to just call me stuff all the time. And at the time, I thought it was like a big deal because like I hadn't like experienced like some worse stuff.
Yeah.
But like fast forward like 2 months, bro. Like it started getting serious like immediately.
It's like, just wait, there's more coming up.
Yeah. It kind of started off like mild, with just like goofy comments. Like people used to touch my hair all the time.
Yeah.
So I grew up with an afro, and I had like a kind of a big afro, and I went to a school just like the group I was talking about with Alex. There was like 5 black people tops at the school I went to. So the middle school I went to, I ended up my graduating class when I graduated was like 118. So it was like really small, and there was like 2 black kids in there. As a matter of fact, I think in my class I may have been the only black kid, and I think I specifically remember a lot of people giving me a hard time because it was like, oh, black kid didn't graduate, half a black kid graduated, like that kind of out in the middle of nowhere kind of boonies stuff, right?
Pretty terrible.
Yeah. So I mean, it started in like 7th, 8th grade. I remember like walking down the hallway, and like this teacher stopped me, and I was like, what's going on? And she said that somebody had gotten suspended for like calling me the N-word, and I was like, oh, okay, this is news to me. Like, this is surprising.
Because you didn't hear it.
Yeah, I was like, that's weird. Like, that's some crazy stuff. But like 7th grade? Like, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I wonder where they learned that from. Huh. Interesting.
So it was just weird to me that like stuff like that would happen so young. Like,
yeah.
So, I mean, kind of just ignore it, move past it, whatever. But it didn't ever get any better. Like, it just got worse. Not necessarily, like, sometimes in the content of what some people said was, like, messed up. But, like, it was just, like, piled on, really.
Yeah.
Like, over the course of the years, it would just start with, like, something little. I remember in high school, people used to ask me all the time. This one kid specifically used to ask me all the time if black people were faster because they had an extra muscle in their leg. I don't like. I have no idea where he got that, but apparently, like, I was just the person to come to ask about that. Like, I cared about.
You had a darker skin tone than 99% of the rest of the population.
Yeah. So, like, I used to get weird questions like that, and then it would get like dark, right? Like, people would same sort of thing. People would just like try to hurt your feelings for like no reason, right? And like some of the worst stuff I heard. Like, I told some people the other day, like they're asking like. With all the stuff going on in the news right now about like the basketball team in Oklahoma with like the announcer calling them the N-words and stuff, like that girls basketball team. I was talking, they were like, that's crazy. Like, I've never heard like people say stuff like that. And I was like, you should try being black, bro. Like, you hear it all the time. Yeah. It's crazy. I remember being in like 8th grade and someone saying that, keep this family friendly, your mom effed more black guys than Hurricane Katrina. I was like, and I was 13 years old, bro.
Whoa.
Like, some stuff that realistically, even now, is like, oof. Like, I don't want to hear that. I'm 26 now, and it still would, like, kind of mess with me, right? But, like, I was 13.
Yeah. So
this started to build, like, a little bit of, like, a weird complex for me in this place where, like, after telling people some of the stuff that happened, now people understand, like, oh, maybe that's why he doesn't like that place very much. Like,
like... Because my experiences were like, your kids were actively racist against me verbally all the time. Like,
all the time.
That's why I don't like it.
I remember being on the school bus and this dude saying, I don't mind black people, I just don't like N-words. And I was like...
So, okay.
Yeah, so like, the wild stuff, dude. And this is all in like middle school and high school. Like, all this stuff I'm experiencing. I tell people all the time, like when I was playing basketball in the area that I played in, so Columbiaville, very small town, surrounding areas are like Millington, North Branch, Mayville. Those were like the worst areas, right? Where if I went to one of those schools and say I got fouled and went to like the free throw line and was shooting, I'd hear all sorts of stuff. Like Afro Man or worse, like all sorts of terrible stuff. And it's like, I mean, I'm at this point, I feel almost like with how the world, I guess, is, I feel almost fortunate to have gone through it like younger because I was able to like kind of get grounded and be like, listen, these people are like just trying to hurt my feelings and stuff like that. Like, they're just trying to hurt me. So like, if I don't give them the power over me, then like nothing they can say like even matters, right? And so I mean, like, it sucks that I had to learn that lesson at 13, 14, 15.
Right.
But you know, it has made things a lot easier into adulthood, because like obviously I haven't gotten less black since I was in middle school or high school. So like I have like long like locks now. So like I've kind of embraced it a little bit more even too, and like I've still gotten stuff or like racist comments or like people saying all sorts of stuff to me, like, but now because I experienced so much when I was younger, like a lot of it now, it's way easier to just like let it roll off my shoulders and be like,
right.
Nothing, I don't like, no reason for me to care about what you have to say. I don't know you. Like, if I wouldn't take advice from you, why would I take criticism from you? You know what I'm saying? Like, not that I just am throwing off criticism from people not that I'm doing a bunch of stuff that requires me to be criticized all the time, I guess, but like that's something I've been thinking about lately, is like a lot of people like to throw criticism around, and nowadays like they're living their lives perfectly, or like they're not doing anything wrong, like, you know, stone in the glass house kind of thing. But when it comes down to it, it's like, if I wouldn't take like personal advice from you, then like why would I try to take personal criticism from you? Like, a lot of people are just saying stuff to say things, like just to even hurt your feelings, or because they're jealous or XYZ, and it's like
they get some unsolved, you know, dilemmas within themselves. They feel like they need to just verbally somehow express their unsolved dilemmas within themselves to you, because, you know, you look blacker than me, basically, or, you know, you're black.
Yeah,
like that's it, and that's terrible. Going back to when you're saying the teacher stopped you in the hallway, was it just like, hey, Jordan, let me just talk to you real quick? Like, how did that, you know, exchange go about? They were just like, hey, some kid said the N-word, are you okay? And was that teacher like very comforting about it? How do they, you know, interact with you? Was it they were just like, it's a thing, get over it, you know?
Yeah. So
or I guess also, because I'm assuming some of this got around to different teachers and counselors and so forth, of like kids being maybe verbally racist at least, but how did that all go about in terms of talking to them about it, or just like telling, you know, some type of authorities like, hey, Jimmy so-and-so said a couple racist things?
Yeah. So I guess just your first thing, I remember her name. Her name was Mrs. Simon. Mrs. Simon was she was a substitute teacher. She wasn't even like a normal teacher, like normal. She wasn't like a fully staffed, full-time staff teacher.
Right.
But she was one of like, she came off like this kind of like hard, like kind of like stern lady.
Okay.
But she was like very nice, and I don't know what like her ethnicity was, but she looked like potentially she could be like Native American or something like that. Whatever. She didn't look cookie cutter white lady that like all of my other teachers and everything looked like, right? So she came up to me in the hallway and she like stopped me and she was like, hey, just want to like mention to you, like, was very comforting, and she was like very supportive and very nice. And I do distinctly remember how she like talked to me and like let me know, and let me know that if I ever needed to talk or anything like that, she was there for me, which was really nice. Because that was the thing that I really felt like there was like a genuine complaint that I had about the schooling system, is that like I didn't feel like there was a lot of people I could go talk to or like be supported by. Like, I had some friends, but like none of my friends that went there were like black. I mean, like a couple of them were, but like we didn't like talk about that all the time. Like, we talked about whatever, right? And then the rest of my friends there were white, because it was like an all-white school pretty much. So I mean, there weren't even like a lot of people I really felt like I could open up to, or like felt that maybe I just internalized it and like wanted to keep it to myself or something. I didn't want to I don't know. Realistically, there's only like a couple of people I would have wanted to talk to. Like, I only felt like I was really like looked after by like a couple of teachers in that school. Like, pretty much the entire English language arts department. So shout out to Mrs. Weiss, Mrs. Newcomb. Yeah, that's it there, I guess. And then like Mr. Brule was like my track coach, and since I was like good at track and cross country in high school, he always like kept an eye on me to make sure I was staying out of trouble. I had like a science teacher in middle school that was really helpful, Mr. Henley. And then my band teacher, actually. My band teacher was like the best.
Right.
He was super, super cool. Mr. Russell. Shout out to Mr. Russell. He was the man. But realistically, there just like wasn't a whole lot of like people. Like the problem with going through something like that in the area that I did is there's like very little representation for people like me. So it was, like I said, my graduating class was like 118. I'd say like all the staff and students combined was like somewhere between 500 and 600 people in the building, and there was maybe like 1 to 2% were like black people.
Right.
Super, super small, like 5, 6, 7 of us at most, right? And like none of the faculty, well, all the faculty was white. Like all the parents, all the helpers, everything was white. So it's like, how am I going to come to you about like racism? Like you don't know what I'm going through. Like you don't know how to experience this as an adult or a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kid, whatever age I was. Like experience this from 6th grade until I graduated. Like there's no way for you to ever know like how I'm feeling or what I'm going through. So I almost felt like trapped, and so I felt like almost like I needed to internalize it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure that has lasting effects on me today, like why I kind of hold on to things and don't want to talk to a lot of people about it is maybe growing up it just became such a norm that it was like I don't have anybody to talk to about this. Like even, I mean, once again, shout out to my mom for being like the best mom ever. I'm never trying to rag on my mom about anything. But even like her, like she still doesn't understand why I hate that place so much. And it's like, dude, realistically, because you're like white, you went to a white school where everyone, like you look the same as everybody. Okay.
So for her, like, it was difficult for her to even relate to you about how to approach these things. Like, did you even go to her about it, or like your family members like, hey, look, someone's being racist at school, you know? So how did that play out?
I didn't really talk about it too much to my mom until later on, until I had already kind of come to terms with it and like grown past it. Probably after I graduated high school and like into college, and college was like a really good experience for me because I went to Eastern, so in Ypsilanti, just outside of Detroit. So there was a lot more culture and just like a lot more. There's a ton more people. I went from 500 to like 13,000.
Yeah.
And then a ton of black people. And then I was on a sports team. So there was like a bunch of diversity there. We had like a dude from Ethiopia. We had a dude from New Zealand. We had a dude from Poland. We had dudes from all over the place. And it made me realize like how like terrible that place is that like I came from. That like a lot of people are there for like long periods of time, like forever.
Yeah.
Once again, not trying to rag on my mom. I know this may sound like that. But like my grandpa graduated from Lakeville. My mom graduated from Lakeville. All of my siblings graduated from Lakeville. And that is the end of that line for a very hard reason.
So you're not going to go back to Lakeville and like raise a family?
Hell no.
You're not going to get like, you know what? I'm 35 years old. I got me a wife and I want some kids, but I want to raise them in Lakeville.
There is like a negative chance of that happening. Honestly, it just like being like, I don't want to say alienated because like realistically, like a lot of people kind of liked me, and I don't know if I was popular because like people actually liked me or because they wanted to be friends with the black kid or like XYZ, right? Yeah. But like there were a lot of people that were nice to me and like cool with me and stuff like that. Mostly the people on my sports teams. So like one of my best friends through like middle school and high school, like Trevor. Shout out to Trevor. Dylan, like one of my best friends still to today. Like I still talk to those guys and they were all on like my sports teams. And like when I was down and going through like tough stuff, they were always like around for me. And still didn't really bring to them like all this stuff because once again, there's a lot that I don't expect them to really understand. But growing up in a place like that where there's not like anyone to talk to or anyone to like relate to you, it's just tough. Like you have to grow up a certain way, and like I think all of my siblings, well, my 3 younger sisters, my brother is white. His dad was white. He has a different dad than us. So he even has like a different experience growing up than we did. But I think me and my three sisters all have like pretty significant resentment for either that place or like a lot of people there, just because of like how we were treated and how we experienced that, and like it's such a young age too. It's just tough, you know.
Oh, that's crazy. So when you went to Eastern, I toured Eastern too, and that was one of my like only I looked at had like three choices. It was MSU, CMU, or Eastern, and Eastern and CMU were like, "We want you," and I was like, "Sweet." I'm just gonna wait to see if MSU accepts me. If MSU accepts me, I'm gonna take MSU. But there was like a point where I was like, it's Eastern or it's CMU. So, but one at Eastern, what was that like? So you say it was like more of a culture shock in some aspect, but what did you learn from going to Eastern? Then what more did you learn?
I mean, honestly, it was spectacular. It was like the best experience for me to move away from like the town I grew up in. Just to be around other people that I felt like were more like genuine, honestly. I definitely felt like growing up where I did that a lot of people only liked me because they wanted to be friends with the black kid. That like a lot of people seemed really fake. Like a lot of people that I considered like friends, I would catch like saying bad stuff, or someone would tell me that they said something bad, and like it just seemed really fake to me. So when I moved to Ypsilanti and I was on the track team at Eastern, so I met like still to this day, like I said, some of my best friends. So like my buddy Scotty, Mason, Khalil. Shout out to Khalil, just finished up med school.
Nice.
Scotty's in law school. My buddy Mason just got like a pretty cool gig, and then like just all those guys that I met through, like I went on a cruise with like some of these dudes like right before coronavirus popped off, like December 2019. But part of it, was just like meeting a bunch of black people. Like I was sweet mates with some dudes from like Urban, Ohio. And they were like super cool dudes. One was like a music producer, and one was on the track team. So like we actually were pretty tight. And it was a culture shock to me, honestly, because a lot of this, once I moved to a place where there was a lot more like black culture, it started to seem to me that a lot of those outlying places like Columbiaville, like the place Lakeville, like where I came from, honestly just mimicked a lot of that culture anyway. Like I remember there was this girl on the track team that used to just like, she was a country girl, wore boots and John Deere stuff to school every day, but then would be like singing Young Jeezy lyrics, warming up and saying like the N-word and stuff. And I was like, listen, homie, like
there's gonna be a little conversation here.
Yeah, like you need to chill.
Right.
Realistically. Right. But it was so nice because I also felt like when I was growing up, I was forced to identify with one or the other. Like, I had to be white, or I had to be like, you're not that black. Look, I'm as dark as you, or like, you don't talk black. You don't.
Yo, that always that always made me laugh and also like cringe inside when people be like, I got a tan and I'm almost dark. No, you're not. Stop right now. Stop right now. You know what you're doing.
Wait a week. Chill out. Stop being crazy. Yeah, man, it was a lot. But when I moved away and got to experience so much more culture, I felt like me. Like I felt like who I was supposed to be. Like for so long, it was like you hear a bunch of stuff about how black people that grow up around a lot of white people are like good at like code switching.
Yeah.
So for example,
I do that.
Yeah, like if I'm hanging out with like a certain group of people from like, if I see anyone from home, it's a lot different than if I'm with my boys. Yeah. Or even if I like see you, or if I see like some of my boys from Eastern, like if I see them, it gets rowdy. Like it just does, and that's just how it is. But like I finally was at a place where I felt like I didn't have to do that, and it was nice because nobody knew who I was. I could completely start fresh and start new, and I could be whoever I wanted to be.
Right.
Honestly, I messed up. It wasn't really. From 18 to 21, I think having like not a whole lot of freedoms, and then going to like a whole lot of freedom. So coming from, I didn't really mention this a whole lot, but like a pretty religious, pretty strict background.
Right.
Like can't watch Pokemon, can't watch Fairly Odd Parents, can't watch Harry
You didn't
Potter.
watch Pokemon?
Evolution.
Oh, you missed out.
I know I did.
You missed out.
Same thing.
I snuck through it.
Fairly Odd Parents, bro. That show was fire.
It was definitely good. I definitely snuck my Pokemon shows. I was like,
Yeah.
gotta watch these. And then like, Ash, I need to know what's happening, man.
I like snuck a MySpace. Like my mom didn't know about my MySpace. Like all sorts of stuff. And like what happens is when you grow up really like in a really strict environment, you get good at being sneaky.
Yeah.
But then when you get all that freedom, you don't have to be sneaky anymore, right? And so like I was wilding. I was going to parties and I was doing all this stuff. And because I was on the track team and stuff like that, I could go anywhere I wanted to.
Right.
So Eastern sports, not the best, but they have a couple of really good teams. Mm-hmm. Their swim and dive team was really good before they cut the team, which not a good look on Eastern. And then their baseball team was actually like not too bad, and then their cross country and track team was like phenomenal. Like won a lot of championships and stuff like that. Yeah, so like anywhere I went, people recognized like the people I was with. So we pull up to a party and they'd be like, "Hey, what's up, T?" And they like bring him in and they'd be like, "Hey, who's that dude with you?" It's like, "No, he's with us. He's on the team." It's like, "Oh, okay, where? Come in." So like instantly I went from like never drinking, never doing anything in high school, being like super goody cut, like, oh, if I do this, I'm gonna be bad at sports. And then I get to college, and like everybody on the team is like, "Oh, you won't." And I was like, shoot.
You're playing Swimming Pools by Kendrick, and you know,
yes, that whole album at parties freshman year was going wild. And so, I mean, I just got like a little too involved in that, I think, and I like my mom was always concerned because of there's like some addiction in my family, and it can be pretty genetic. And so she was always concerned that something was going to happen. I was always pretty good, actually. I always like knew my limit and when to like stop drinking, and I was always fortunately like I have like a pretty wild like metabolism, and I sober up really quickly. So like 45 minutes to an hour after after drinking, I'm like fresh. So I ended up kind of being almost like the party dad. Like I'd get drunk and then like I'd sober up and then make sure like everyone was good. You know, had a couple like hospital runs and like a couple stuff, just like making sure everyone's good. But my time at Eastern was actually really cool. But I got injured. I didn't prepare very well going there. So like my off seasons in high school, I didn't do anything. I just like watched TV, played Call of Duty, hung out with my friends, you know. Like I'm a kid, I don't want to have to do all this stuff that I have to do when I go back to school. Right. So between senior year of high school and freshman year of college, I was supposed to be training like 60 to 70 miles a week, and I was maybe running 20. Like maybe, right. I'm like, I'm trying to have a good time. I'm trying to go to Cedar Point. Bro, I'm trying to have fun, you know? So I got to college and just got worked. Like nonstop, bro. Like nonstop. I was one of the my junior year I was like the best mile runner in our conference. And then senior year, not as great, but like still one of the top runners in the conference. And I got to college and was like second to last. Just getting worked by these dudes, right?
Yeah.
And the jump from not training at all to training way too much, I got an injury, and I wasn't able to really recover from it very well, and ended up getting cut from the team. And since that was the only reason I went to Eastern, after that I was like, yeah, I'm dipping. Like, there's no reason for me to be here anymore. Like, I'm homesick. Honestly, I wasn't like ready, I don't think, to move out. It took me a while to mature. Like, I thought I was like hot stuff until like later on in life, and then I realized like, yo, like, no, you're not. Like, you need to like Dunning-Kruger effect stuff. Like, I thought I was here, and then once I learned more, I'm like, no, I'm like down here. You need to like get it together. And so after that, I ended up leaving Eastern, and I went to Mott and Flint for a couple years. I lived at home, worked like a couple odd jobs. And I ran cross country there because they said they would pay for my school. And so I was like, well, bet. Yeah. Like, I'm not, that 2 years of school paid for, like, absolutely. So ended up going through that. Finished up there and went to Saginaw Valley. Where I started off, like, nursing program. That didn't work out. Some extenuating circumstances, and I realized that nursing classes suck.
Yeah, they're pretty difficult.
Don't let me dissuade you from doing nursing if you're really about it.
Dude,
it's really not for me. It's not for me.
They're super difficult, and I think MSU had a extensively difficult program that I knew some people who were super stressed about the nursing program, and they were busting their butts, day in and day out just on the material alone. But I totally understand that.
Yeah, so got kind of burnt out with that. I was taking like 18 credits or something like that. I just was like, it was a lot of science. And
18 is a lot.
I was also working too. So I was like working probably 20 hours a week or so at like a restaurant, which is a pretty stressful job. Like at this point, it's still stressful, but it's really easy. Like I've done it long enough. But at that time, I was still kind of new to it. So it's really stressful. I'm trying to do 18 credits. Trying to like maintain a social life, which obviously any college student knows there's like the holy three of like grades, social life, and sleep, and you have to give up one. Like you can't have all three. So like eventually I got into like a better balance and was like, all right, nursing isn't for me. And my future roommate at the time, which is like the dude that I hung out with a lot there, he was like, well, I'm in exercise science, dude. It's super cool. Like we just talk about sports and
it's hilariously
do
great.
Sports and and I was like, okay, that's like not the best explanation I've ever had, but we'll check it out, right? So I ended up going and talking to like the advisor and be like, listen, I took all these science classes and then like didn't go into nursing. Is there anything I can do that this like doesn't waste the last couple years of my life?
Exact same conversations with my.
And he was like, "Yeah, exercise science or AT." And I was like, "Athletic training. That sounds cool. I love working with sports teams, right?" So, like first semester, I got this class called Athletic Injury Management. I don't remember my professor's name, but that's probably for the best because I'm not about to say some good things.
Oh, good. Okay.
We would come into class every day, and she would just make us watch an injury, bro.
All right.
And it would be like some tame stuff, like somebody, I mean, tearing an ACL is not tame. It obviously sucks. But like watching someone tear an ACL, a lot of times isn't that bad. Because a lot of times you just like twist the wrong way, right? But then she made us watch this video of this like pee-wee football, right? And this kid's just like running, right? And someone tackles him, and he sticks his arm out, and he lands on it, and it snaps in the middle, right? And then they were like, let's rewind it. So they rewinded it, and then the like masochist, crazy, whatever dude that made this video was a sound engineer, and he removed all the sound except for the noise of the bone breaking. So it's dead silent, and then in slow motion, you see this kid land on an outstretched arm and break and hear it. And I was like, absolutely not. No way I'm about to do that for a career, bro.
Did you ever do like a special like here's what's currently happening, like Kevin Ware and his like jump shot break?
Yes. we watched that. We watched
that one I cringe every single time I see that.
Terrible. For some, if anyone watches, like has been watching sports for a while, Joe Theismann. So Lawrence Taylor ended his career, tackled him and just messed his leg up, like shattered a whole lot. We watched that. We watched all sorts of nasty injuries, bro. It was terrible. And at that point, I was like, this is not for me. I can't watch this stuff because it reminds me, like, I was an athlete my whole life, and I know how bad injuries suck. Like, on top of the fact that that hurts and you're out, the psychological damage of an injury. So I was not about that. Right. So the other option was exercise science, right? So there's AT, athletic training, which is like you get hurt and we take care of you and try to fix you, right? More or less. It's like almost in the same vein as like physical therapy. And then exercise science, a lot of people there are like prevention and preparation. So doing everything they can to make sure that your body is ready for whatever you need to do, right? So and that's where I ended up. It was cool. Ended up in exercise science, got like my degree. I've done like personal training for the past couple years, and then I'm trying to get back into school for physical therapy right now.
Nice. No, I feel you on that because I graduated with a kinesiology degree, and I was microbiology before, and I definitely had that conversation. It was just like I have all these science credits and I'm not going to use them. So what can I do with these? And they're like, oh yeah, just go more to kinesiology. You just take like 2 or 3 semesters and you're good to go. You can graduate like within time. I'm like, all I need to hear.
Perfect.
He said it's just going to be a little bit of a loans and nothing more than that. That's perfect. Pell Grant's out, but it's not that much of a loan, so I'm good. So yeah, no, I totally understand that. No, that's crazy. So you're out of college now, or you're going back into physical therapy. With the recent, string of political climate that we're in, where it comes in racism, has that been more prevalent in your line of work, where you like communicate with people? Have you noticed anything more recent? Have you gone back to your hometown, visit people, and they were like, "Hey, we remember you," or whatever? Any of those type of instances?
I try to stay away from my hometown like the plague, honestly.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't I make as little effort to be there as possible. My grandparents still live there, so I'll go visit them. And then actually one of my really good friends, Kyle, lives in North Branch. So I'll go visit there too. But like I try to stay away from that place. Like I have a lot of like bad memories that tend to get brought up when I go back there. Like I'll drive across the bridge and like memories come back, and then like all of it floods back where it's like, wow, your childhood was rough, bro.
Jeez.
Like I definitely didn't have it as bad as some kids, but like
Yeah, and everybody has their own level of what they want to call it, of being able to survive or be able to deal with X, Y, and Z issues and dilemmas and so forth.
Yeah,
so,
everyone's resilient to a different level.
Exactly. So your resiliency for a lot of things, in comparison to what I went through growing up in inner city schools, it's definitely different. I remember when I was on the bus, a kid, he had this was in middle school, I think it was 6th or 7th grade. he had some chopsticks that we got from our Japanese class. He would use them as like shanks. He thought kids come on,
so
man.
dumb,
Kids
bro.
are crazy.
I was there though. I can understand why they're dumb, but like kids are dumb.
Kids are extremely dumb. So he used the chopsticks as like shanks, and he's like going on the bus like shanking people and like
Shanking people.
right. Like he's thinking he's the stuff. He's a big bad guy, and he's got his weight. He's got these shanks, and he's about to hustle through. And I remember I told my mother about it, and she went back up to the school, and that kid got in trouble. And then I think within the program, the language Japanese class, no one was able to have chopsticks outside the class. Like, and that kind of stuck for me, because I'm like, I actually like the chopsticks, but this guy did kind of ruin it for everybody. So, but yeah, my mom has a way of like being active in that sense of just she'll make her voice heard whether you wanted to hear it or not. So in the home, that's how it goes. But I love my moms.
Shout out to moms.
Shout out to moms. You did a good job. We're here. We're not robbers. One of us not a robber yet, so that's good. Well, yeah, I don't think I have too many other questions to ask you here, or things that are just coming to mind. But I appreciate the time you're able to give and the story you're able to share with us here. And I got a little puppy here. And so thank you all who were able to come through. Give me a second. For you audio listeners, I am recording home with my roommate here. We got a little puppy. And for you video listeners, there goes my roommate and a puppy.
It's a really cute dog. For y'all that can't see, it's a really cute dog.
It's black and white, American Staffordshire, I think. It's an American something. But anyways, thank you all for joining and spending another hour with us today. My guest, Jordan West, myself, Alexander Woods, and where can people find you? Social medias. Put that in. Links will be in the description, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so at J_West13 for like most everything, like Instagram or like Facebook, I'm just Jordan West. Twitter, we'll keep that. I'll make a lot of jokes on there. Most of y'all probably don't need to follow me on there. So, yeah, we'll
it's quality content.
If you guys are real cool, then we'll talk. But my Instagram is where like most of the stuff that people would like to see or need to see would be at. So,
right, I remember because we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and there's be different times where some exchanges will happen, and man, oh man. Sometimes ignorance shows a whole new level with other people, and it's fun to catch them in the moment.
You gotta roast them when you can.
Right. Imagine being the guy. So I look back and that guy deleted his post too. So
always does. Always does.
I was like, can you imagine this? And the post was deleted. I was like, oh my god, dude deleted it. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, thanks again a ton for having me, man. It was a great time. Good talking to you.
For sure, catching up and everything. And you, listeners, watchers out there, if you want to share a story, hit up the email. It's myhistory.foryou@gmail.com, and we can work something out. Put in the subject, I have a story, and then go right ahead and tell me who you are, other ways to contact you, and maybe your available times of when you want to do a podcast. All you really need to do is be from Michigan, because it's a Michigan story. It's a MIHistory, Michigan history, where Michiganders like you, myself, Jordan here, get to tell you something about us. Anyway, thank you again, Jordan.
Absolutely,
and for you, everyone out there, peace, love, and prosperity.
Adios.